Hel Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BizTools. Welcome to this webinar today for our members of ESS BizTools and ESS BizGrants. Business Advisory Services Implementation Training, Getting Ready so it can be implemented. I'm joined today by Andrew Geddes, an accounting industry guru. I've called you, Andrew, and the former chair of Green Cross Limited. How are you, Andrew?
Good, thank you, Peter.
That's very good. So what we're going to just move into is welcome to everyone that's joined us. If you have any questions, please type them into chat, and we will talk about your questions during the webinar today. But I wanted to set the scene. You people are already subscribers to ESS BizTools, but I know at times people forget that they've got our subscription. There's a lot of other issues going on built around tax, and obviously for the last 18 months, the COVID-19 crisis. But the CommBank Accounting Market Pulse report that was released in May has highlighted that only 5% of firms in Australia will not be diversifying services in the next 12 to 18 months. So the message I get out of that has been the person who over the last 20 years, initially with some great assistance from Andrew Geddes and the team at FMRC, we have developed products and have them all over Australia and with accountants, but we really want you to be using them because I suspect the market's catching up. The general market are now really looking at business advisory services. So the reason we're running this weekly webinar for July and August with our subscribers is to hopefully rejuvenate your enthusiasm for supplying business advisory services, because a lot of other firms are now starting to look at that opportunity for them. Only 5% of firms will not be diversifying services, is what the CommBank report said. They also identified that business advisory services was clearly identified as the growth service line in the next 12 to 18 months. So where are you in this overall activity? And those firms that identified business advisory services as being their growth area were 81% of who the Commonwealth Bank referred to as leading firms. Those firms were asked, or every firm apparently in their survey was asked 5 initial questions, and they were the ones that they rated as being the leading firms. 81% of them are committed to business advisory services. And the other firms, the CommBank's terms, not mine, they called them lagging firms, and 67% of them had identified business advisory services. Both of those percentage supports were significantly higher than for any of the other products that were mentioned by the CommBank. And the closest to it was tax advice, which most accountants already give, of course. So why is the delivery of business advisory services important for accountants? What do you think it is? So I'm now very happy to introduce you to Andrew Geddes. Andrew is the joint founder of the Financial Management Research Centre, which was at the University of New England when I first met Andrew, a long time ago, really, Andrew, wasn't it? But
it certainly was, Peter.
And then Andrew, obviously for many of you, and a couple of you have sent me emails yesterday saying how happy you were that we're going to have Andrew on this webinar today. Andrew is an outstanding accountancy industry mentor and coach, and he's been around for a long time. I think one of Andrew's greatest successes, though, has been with a public company, or a company that ended up a public company, Green Cross. Andrew was the chair of this company for the last 10 years. But what a lot of you might not know is Andrew was the original advisor to that company 30 odd years ago when they started with one veterinary clinic in Townsville. And then they
standing round a barbecue, Pete.
Standing around a barbecue.
Drinking beer at a barbecue with half a dozen vets.
I thought there might have been red wine there, but anyhow.
Later, possibly.
I think that's business advisory services in action. Just think about it. Andrew sat around a barbecue and talked to half a dozen veterinary graduates, as I understand it, Andrew, from the folklore.
That's right.
And out of that emerged an outstanding Australian public company. That's business advisory services in action. I dream about having that sort of success. I might have one. I mentioned it to Andrew the other day, but that's beside the point at this stage. But that's what I think we all dream about, getting a company that can grow. And that's really putting business advisory services into action. So, Andrew, the question I would put to you is, why should accountants proactively deliver business advisory services to their SME clients? And I'm going to share the screen with you now. And good afternoon, Andrew. And you
I'm
can
just sharing my
make
screen.
your presentation.
I'm sharing my screen as well. Peter, have you got it?
Yes, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just bring it up. There it is. So it should be full screen now. Pete, all systems go?
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
The answer to your question is easy. If you don't help your clients with their business, they might go broke. Then you won't have a tax, accounting, compliance client.
Yes.
Simple. I also think that it's a moral obligation, having been given the privilege of tertiary education as an accountant. You should be helping your businesses in your community. Small businesses employ more people than anyone else, and they're particularly the backbone of suburban and regional communities. So apart from it being in your interest in having clients, it's in the community's interests in having continuity. So to me, it's a privilege that we serve. Now, today, you've asked me to share my experiences. I've been doing this since 81, 40 years.
I wasn't going to say 40 years, but anyhow.
Well, it's true. And during that time, I've worked with accounting firms, helping them with their businesses, being a business advisor to accounting firms, but also getting involved with their clients. So I've worked with small businesses of all shapes and sizes, and I've specialized in business advisory work with small business throughout my career. Green Cross is really one exception that grew and became listed. Otherwise, it's all small business. And I assume that that's the majority of the clients of the accountants who are sharing today with us. So do you want to do business advisory work? Let me share with you some of the lessons. I guess it starts with your clients. What do they need and what do they want? Sometimes they're separate matters, and the only way to find out is to ask questions and interview them and listen and do a financial Sherlock Holmes on them. So in the ESS BIZTOOLS, there's a needs review questionnaire that Peter can refer you to. I'd table it and walk through it with my clients and ask them questions and take notes and find out what they think they need, what they think they want, and what they're not aware of. And it's a communication process, an education process. I currently have 8 clients whose advisory boards I sit on. I don't take more than that because I can't do it properly. So the more involved you get with your clients, the less of them you can really service in a very deep, meaningful way. So you need to keep that in mind as well. So my question is, have you got the time to do this work? We'll talk about that, lessons from firms, the sort of structure they're putting in place, the way they're involving their compliance teams. So we'll cover that as we go. So I would start by looking at my client list and asking myself, who's a client I've got a great rapport with, we communicate easily with, that person trusts and respects me. Have a look at their financial results and ask yourself, how are they going? Look at their gross profit margins, their net margins. Look at their level of debtors, stocks, materials, work in progress, finished goods. Do they have budgets? Are they split back into monthly or daily sales or turnover targets? Do they have a tender process? How many tenders do they need to write to get a certain amount of sales? So I'd do a thorough review of my client, looking at their financials, using some of the analytical tools that are in the ESS BIZTOOLS. There's a pricing model for tradies where you put in wages, overheads, hours worked, hours on jobs and it comes up with some hourly production rates, I'd do some of those analyses and thoroughly understand the client, and then ring them up and say, could we get together? Let's have a cup of tea or a beer. And I'd like to ask you a few questions. I've got a special needs review questionnaire. Would you give me an hour? It's free. Let's go through this together. So to me, the starting point of getting involved in business advisory is to select a favorable client that you've got a good rapport with, get your head around their figures, and then go and have a yarn. Have a look at the needs review questionnaire before you go. Peter will point out where it is in the material.
Yes.
You might even do a benchmark of them. You can go to benchmarking.com.au, which evolved out of the old Financial Management Research Centre at the University of New England, is now a company run by some young'uns, and you could put your clients' figures into, if they have them on that particular industry, and take a benchmark comparison with you. My experience over 40 years has been every business person I've asked, how do you compare to the top profit earners in your sector, have gone, I don't know, show me. And away we've gone. So it's a matter of asking questions, having conversation, writing down notes and finding out what their concerns are, where they think they might be able to improve, and if they've got some blind spots based on your experience. Now, the next step is when the client says, all right, how can you help me? It's really good if you can table a services package. So I can be your chief financial officer. I can prepare profit, sales, cash flow budgets. We can monitor your actuals because we're linked through Xero or MYOB or whoever it is, and we can look at actuals versus budget, and we can review, are you hitting your weekly or monthly revenue targets, margin targets, and we can have a 30-minute via Teams or Zoom discussion about it, or I'll pop around. And that might cost you $1,500 a month. Or we have an advisory board where we have a formal board meeting, and that could be structured around the scaling up methodology, which is in ESS BIZTOOLS as well. We'll look at that a bit later. So once you've had a chat with a favorable client about their needs, you could then suggest to them, I can help you by playing this role and my fees are X. I've found, Peter, that I've said to a bloke who runs a civil engineering company, turnover 8 million, wanted some help. He's the sole owner. I said, I'll give you an hour a month and that'll cost you $1,000 because I'm going to read stuff, your financials, and think about it, and then we'll have an hour together. And after 3 months, he said, I'd like to expand this a bit. Well, now it's $7,500 a quarter. So if you start with a small engagement and you win trust, you can then build that engagement to a deeper role and increase your fees. So you may be able to table some service packages, but be flexible, start slowly and gently, and build rapport, build trust, and away you go. Now, who's going to do the compliance work? Firms are putting in specialist compliance teams where it's based on the old finders, minders, grinders concept, but I don't like the term grinder. I think it's insulting, so I call them a producer instead. So you might be the finder doing the needs review discussion with your client, so you're finding out where the opportunities for improvement are. The minders are your client service manager, who is looking after a team, or maybe that's you. The production manager looks after a team of accountants and bookkeepers, looking at what accounting do we have to do, what compliance, BASs, etc., GST returns has to be done, getting the team to do it. So slowly as an accountant, if you hand over and empower your employed accountants to deal with the compliance, you can be freed up to do more of the client service manager, asking of questions, identifying projects that need to be implemented with the client and helping them with those. So have you got the time to do it? If you're a sole practitioner working alone, you'll only be able to do it with 1 or 2 clients. If you're chock-a-block with compliance and working 70 hours a week, you'll struggle. So you've got to build a team, delegate and involve them. In other words, you probably have got to do some business advisory work on yourself first. So in terms of the tools that firms are using, to me, the best starting point is ESS BizTools. It's got so much detail in it about small business management, looking at things like debtors management, stock management, creating budgets, setting up KPIs, monitoring them, running planning meetings, involving your team, and then it moves into government grants, it moves into business planning, all of these specialty areas. So to me, it's a great place to start. Usually the first issue is cash flow management. Cash is the most critical factor in a small business. Without cash, you're broke, and then you ain't got a client. So that's the starting point. Firms are then moving into using more specialized tools once they're on top of utilizing the ESS BizTools small business management general advisory materials. So we're going to have a look at some of those. Cash flow planning. Peter, you've been running Plan Guru with Paul Barnaby in your webinars, and that's one. Other clients are using Fathom, and I mean, there's heaps of them, Cash Flow Story, on and on they go. Yeah. We found in the COVID situation with reduced sales, lockdowns and uncertainty and variations, that we went to our clients and said, let's help you with cash flow as a starting point. We made sure they were COVID capable and began to monitor cash flow. So that was a great starting point. There's usually what's the most critical aspect of cash flow management? Stock control and debtors management, which is in the ESS BizTools. Understand that. I mean, I found over my 40 years that I'd go to clients and say, can you show me how you run your stock? How do you place an order? How do you know how much to order and when to do it? And by visiting clients and asking questions and learning from them, within a few visits, I was able to walk into a client and go, oh, have you thought about this? Because I saw it last week over there. So you become a better advisor by visiting, asking, being inquisitive. If you've got that general desire to learn and share with your clients, you'll be successful in business advisory. As we suggested, start with the needs review with the client, look at cash flow. Maybe after that, you could suggest a planning meeting, a business planning meeting, a strategic planning meeting, and you might involve, depending on the size of your small business, I always suggest they create a senior leadership team and we run a meeting with 6 or 7 of them and we go, let's look at the strengths of the business, the opportunities, the trends that are affecting us, where are the weaknesses, where are the risks, and consequently, what are 1 or 2 things we can improve in the next quarter, and we document that, set up project groups and focus on that. So in one of my manufacturing engineering companies in Newcastle, we put in a new job costing system and got on top of really managing the cost of jobs. And that was a project that took 3 months, and our margins went from 5% to 30% on various environmental engineering pieces of equipment we were producing. So that's an example of, with a client, running a planning meeting, identifying an area to be improved, running a project group each week. What are you doing? What are the actions? Who's implementing? So that's business advisory work. Some of my firms in time have decided to create some specialties. One of them is using B-Star to do a risk review. They call it a RAVDA, and your client fills in a questionnaire. It assesses the risk in the business and gives them a multiplier. It produces a SWOT. It allows you to sit with a client and go, based on your response to this questionnaire, here's how you see it. Let's identify what needs to be improved, set up a project group and work on it. So to do a free questionnaire, you could charge them $250 and say, once we've got that, we'll have a meeting. Business advisory work. Out of that comes the ability then to get a multiplier and apply it to maintainable profit and come up with a value of the business and say, if you sold it, is that enough? If not, we've got to improve the profit. And hence you can create succession planning out of such a tool. So start with ESS BizTools. When you're on top of that, maybe you can look at some of the other specialty tools. That's an example of it. let me talk to you about the scaling up methodology. Peter, you've got material on this in your tools, do you not?
Yes, yeah, we do have, yeah.
Good. So it's really, this is the agenda for a strategic planning retreat. Having looked at a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and trends, not threats, trends. What are the trends in the market affecting the business? We can think about what do we want to look like in 3 to 5 years? Turnover size, margin, staff, location, services, products. Why do we do what we do? What's our purpose? What are the outcomes that we want to achieve for customers, for our team, for our shareholders, for our community? So what's our focus in achieving the outcomes for our stakeholders? What are our core values? What determines acceptable behavior and sackable behavior? And making sure everyone is comfortable in working for an organization. If they're not, they'll leave. So involving them in dealing with that is the starting point of scaling up. And then, okay, the strategic initiatives. It's a flash management term for what the hell are we got to nail in the next 3 months? 1, 2, or 3 things. Who's going to be responsible? When should we meet to drive these projects? Should we have a weekly sales or job meeting? Should we have a daily stand-up organizing meeting? Should we have a monthly review of the projects and our financials? So what's the pattern of meetings? And the governance is who's going to sit in on the monthly board review? And how do you make the project groups work? Get them to report to the governance meeting. So as a result of that, as the leader of this business, your client, how should we spend our time? So that's what scaling up is all about. And you need to do this to your accounting firm and learn it and then drive it at your clients. And that's how you become a better business advisor. So having run a planning meeting and looking at the financial budgets and starting to review them and developing some project groups, you can be the minute secretary of that monthly meeting and send the actions. What I like to do is say, here's a project, here's all the list of actions. As we do them, turn them from black to red, but don't delete them so that when we meet, we can see what we've achieved. It's part of motivating the group and use that as a communication device. So it's a great way to start and have a go. Then I would be handing out some of the summarized articles in ESS BizTools to clients saying, read this. And then I'd come back to them at the next meeting and say, have you read it? What were the major points you got from it? I also give them to the members of the senior leadership team and ask them, what did you get out of reading that in the meetings publicly in front of each other? So they realize that if I send them something, I expect them to read it and to comment on it as to what they learnt and what they think is applicable to us. I then invite them to ESS webinars. I'd attend with them if possible. So you start to become a business educator using the intellectual property in the tool that you subscribe to, and you use that to create questions, conversations, celebrate the wins, and that's what business advisory work is all about. I feel I'm the member of 8 tribes located in different places around this country. I look forward to seeing them as they do look forward to seeing me. We drive our meetings, we work hard, but often we'll put aside an evening where we'll have dinner together and informal communication. That's part of being a business advisor too. So in setting up your own senior management team, you can't do it alone. If you're a sole practitioner alone, you might be able to do it for 1, 2, or 3 clients, as long as you haven't got too many others. Otherwise, I'd be sitting down with my accounting group and using the scaling up methodology and asking, well, let's create a version of this and summarize it in a 1-page plan for ourselves. If you've never done it before, do it on yourself. That's the best place to start and practice. So there's the agenda for a planning meeting.
Very good.
And it's as simple as that. And just document what you agree with your team. Ask them what they think rather than tell them. So my question of you as an accounting practice, what are the three most important things you got to nail in the next quarter? Who should sit on those project groups to drive them? Your team members should be involved. I mean, for example, in order to get you to let go of compliance work, should we have a project group entitled Freeing the Boss Up to Visit Clients? Should the senior team members sit on that and devise the actions necessary to free you up and get you to delegate and stop checking things and saying, give it back to me, I'll fix it myself, because of your desire for accuracy? You've got to start letting go to create time to do business advisory work, and this will allow you to build trust in your team, but they need to solve the problem and work out how they're going to do it, and you need to let them have a go. And if they make a mistake, don't kick their backsides, go, how do we avoid it next time? How can we learn from this? And as long as we have that approach, they won't hide things from you. So practice on yourself. To make project groups work, as I said, have a list, actions, who's going to do it, when are they going to do it, what are we going to measure, do they need help? And then you become a facilitator of that project group, and you document those actions, and they come up and are reviewed. They're the agenda for the meeting. What have we done? What have we turned from black to red? The next thing you might do, this is the B-star valuation. You've done a RAVDA risk assessment. You've got a multiplier, apply it to maintainable profit. You've got a company value. When are you going to retire? How much do you want to sell your business for? Do you think it's enough? If it isn't, how do we improve it? And you go back full circle to, we need to do some business improvement work, which is really what business advisory work should be. And again, it's a great way to engage clients. Some of my accounting firms, with their top dozen clients, are doing a full RAVDA risk review, getting a multiplier, creating a value for the company, and that's a formal piece that is prepared and presented annually as part of their service to their client. So they're saying not just tax, but also the value of the company, and is it saleable? Are you dispensable? Is a formal review item annually at the strategic meetings that I facilitate on your behalf.
Yes, that's very important, Andrew, isn't it? Because it's really bringing them into the realm of what happens in public companies, isn't it? This value of your shares is very important, isn't it? It's the intellectual property, the goodwill growing in the business.
And it's what makes profit maintainable, which creates a bigger multiplier that creates a better value and a more saleable business, particularly if the boss is dispensable because we've trained others to take over some of the things he or she have done. And that comes out of this scaling up, involving your team type of approach to run the business. Many small business people don't involve their team, and hence their employees are staff, and their attitude is, I'll do as little as I can and get as much as I can. And hence there's a conflict-based relationship instead of an empowered, engaging, trust-based relationship. So you've got to educate your clients about this. Ask yourself, would my team work for me? Or would my client's team be happy working for my client? And begin to think through the culture in the business and whether people are trusted and engaged. So I guess you've then got to think about how we're going to price this. You've got to know what your own production costs are and the time it takes, and work it out, and then decide, what are the outcomes I'm helping my client with? How valuable are they? And can I price my job up from a production cost, hours by rate basis, to a value basis? Now, that means you have to run a good job costing system yourself. And that's why I start slowly, just involve for an hour or so, a week or a month with the client, price it reasonably, and build trust and build prices as we go. In fact, saying, let's run this for 3 months, then review it, is a great way of saying, well, if you're happy with that, let's add a bit more of my involvement. And of course, your investment in that will be X. And if we achieve the profit improvement, the cash flow improvement, the return on your investment is Y. So you can begin to discuss it with clients in that way. Pricing is the key element to profitability. You've got to be confident in yourself, and you've got to be prepared to ask for the value that you think you're delivering and to let the tire kickers go. After all, people who try and screw you over will affect your attitude and your mental health. And my client selection criteria is headed by a phrase that says, no turds. Price resisting, nitpicking, people who don't listen, who bitch and whinge, who have an entitlement attitude are not accepted as my clients. I think you need to do the same. You've only got so much energy to give, and business advisory work is about giving energy, building trust, and helping people implement actions and improve their business. And it's about helping them communicate with their team and get the team involved. So you've got to become a facilitator, a note taker, a communicator. It's what's required. So don't be afraid of pricing up. And you can always say, well, if you're not prepared to pay the 7,500 a quarter, what's in your budget? Oh, it's only 3,000. Well, here's the list of all the things I'm doing. Which bits don't you want? So for 3, I can do some of it, and have a discussion around that type of structure rather than one based on emotion and guesswork. But you've got to keep your good manners and say, look, I'm sorry, but I can't do that for that price. It means we'd be running at a loss. Here's the things we're going to do for 3,000. What do you want? And turn them around, or just go, I'm sorry, it doesn't seem as if I can help you. Excuse me. So we've looked at what do your clients need? What do they want? They're often different. User needs review questionnaire from ESS BizTools, have the conversation. It's about communication, business advisory work. You've got to build trust and rapport. You've got to have the time to do it. So you've got to engage your team, use scaling up methodology, and get them running their own compliance specialty production unit in your practice. And in that way, you're freed up. The interesting thing is, as you get a reputation for helping businesses improve, you'll get referrals to help them, and that'll lead to increased compliance work. So it's often a great way to build your compliance practice. So that's sort of a quick summary of my experiences and the lessons learnt. I hope that's of value to your subscribers, Peter, or the potential subscribers. And I know if they've got questions, they can ask us, but they can always ring you and ask more questions, because basically you know as much as I do. You're just as experienced, if not more so, in this work than I am.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. I'll just bring the...
I'm doing stop share, so you should be back now.
Yeah, I should be back, and I'm just going to go to here. So I'm now going to take you straight to our website and to just show you a couple of those areas that Andrew was referring to there. So we're going to click on the Business Advisory Services Training package. And the area that I want you to refresh your memory, hopefully you know where this is, but there's 13 modules in the business training area. I think if you've got some new team members or you haven't been doing business advisory service for a while, this is a great place to start. But the one that I want to bring up for you is the SME needs analysis that Andrew was referring to. We base this product that we have in ESS on Andrew's work. With his permission, we made some changes and
added some more detail, no doubt, Pete.
Yeah, we did. And I'll just get this to come up, I hope.
It's a framework for a conversation. You just table it and ask questions around it. Take notes, have 2 copies, one for the client, one for you.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting that.
Here it comes. Whoops.
No, it's not coming up. Let's go in to see if we get one of the others.
There's something coming.
Okay,
There
I'll
we
go
go.
into here and I'll pick it up from here. So there's various ways with ESS BIZTOOLS to pick things up in the system. And what we have on the screen now is the SME needs analysis. I'll just put that into one. There should be one slide.
Just get some water, Pete. I've got a.
Okay.
Right back.
And so hopefully you can all see that now. This is the SME needs analysis questionnaire. The first section is looking at current business performance. And as Andrew said, this is designed for you to sit down and have a conversation with the client. Some clients over the years, I've actually given them this form and asked them to complete it. But in the main, I think it's a great document to have it where you have a cup of coffee with a client. And I found over the years, clients will ask you all sorts of questions. You talk about productivity and they'll say, well, what should our productivity be? I've had people ask, what's benchmarking mean? And how should we use it? In the ratio analysis, KPIs come up. At one stage in my career, I was the chief financial officer of a listed public company. We were the second largest Australian company in the meat industry. And I remember going to our biggest meatworks, which was at Bow Desert in those days, and sat down in the smoko room and talked to the foreman at the morning tea break. And I asked them how they were going with the daily KPI reports they got. Well, I don't know what language they thought I was talking, but they looked at me rather surprised. They didn't know what I was referring to. And I went and got one and showed it to them. They said, oh, we don't understand that, mate. We don't use that. We don't read that. And I said, well, why? Why don't you read it? Oh, what do these terms mean? And they were accounting terms someone had put into this document. So I sat down with them for half an hour at lunchtime and said, well, what would you like to call it? And what would you like to see? And we designed a new form, which they then used. I'm not going to say enthusiastically used, but they used. They understood it because they had ownership. So I think one of the key things out of all this is you might find this, that the boss understands the KPI report, but it's going to some foreman or systems manager or product manager who doesn't understand what it's all about. So it's one of the things that can come out of having this discussion. What about debtors? My pet hate is debtors days outstanding. Unfortunately, I talk to a lot of accountants and say to them words like this. Well, one of the first jobs you could offer in business advisory is talk to your clients that have got debtors days outstanding longer than 40 years, 40 days, not years, 40 days. Hopefully they're not 40 years.
No, you'd be long
that's
gone.
you and I talking about 40 years before, Andrew. So
that's right, Pete.
It's on my brain now. 40 days. And I've had people look at me and say, well, we don't know. I said, it's an easy calculation. Show your clients how to do it, but you should know it. And they're the ones that I'd be talking to about a debtors management review. No use talking to the ones that are sitting on 30 days. They must be doing everything right, unless they're 7-day terms that they're trading under. And there are some industries out there, of course, who are 7-day terms. They were the terms in the meat industry. And if your average was 30 days, you had problems. Cash flow management, Andrew referred to that, budgets. So we got a whole series of questions there. Some of them might be a bit left field for accounting. We got marketing. Marketing's there deliberately because you're offering a business advisory service and your clients are going to open up to you and say, well, we've really got marketing problems. And we got human resources mentioned. And again, it's the same thing. How are they going with Fair Work Australia or Modern Awards or HR systems? If they haven't got that right, they're going to end up with a problem. So it's a good idea to intervene, customers and so on. So that's where
Pete, can I just add, if they've got a client with a marketing problem, they need to grow sales and they don't feel equipped to help, they should suggest that they outsource it to a specialist and perhaps look for a government grant.
Yes, there's government grants around and we've got them within ESS BIZTOOLS. And I see your role, our subscribers' role, is to project manage some of these things.
Yes.
Don't just send the client off to see a marketing expert, try and go with him and summarize what the problem is. What's the client? A lot of clients are not used to dealing with these other professional people and they lose track of what the brief is. What are they trying to achieve? So you might have to help them communicate. You really need to be putting yourself in the position as you are the chief financial officer and company secretary of that client's business. Now, I actually did that for an 11-year period in a listed public company, but I got all sorts of jobs ended up on my desk because the CEO just said, "Oh, here, Pete, can you sort this out for me and come back and tell me what I got to do?" Your clients will do the same thing. Now, you've got to price your package accordingly if that's the type of service you're going to offer to your client. But those of you who watch our webinars regularly will know that one of my real concerns is that clients have got these questions, the what if questions, I call them, because some days I reckon I got it. Every day I got 2 to 3 hours of those out of the CEO and other members of the leadership team. And some days I think it went all day for 10 hours. And a lot of them were costing questions. Who does your client ask those questions to at present? Because don't tell me it's only CEOs of listed public companies that come up with questions. They don't. They come up from at all levels of businesses. But unfortunately, many SMEs don't think they can ring you because they think that accountants in the main are only interested in tax. So that's the SME needs analysis. So thank you very much, Andrew, for referring to that today. There's another area that I have got in the slides, but I'm just going to go straight to it now because we're on the site. ESS Biz Briefs. Now, this is a great place to start with your team. So see where it is. It's on all the product packages within ES. I should have said this before because I know that some people will be watching this that haven't looked at this for a while. And we revamped this whole website about 18 months ago, just before COVID. We've got this little section I established called ESS Biz Briefs because I had people starting to contact me and say, and I'm just going to the bottom of this, 01's down the bottom here somewhere. And people were ringing me and saying, "Oh, well, where do we start? What do we do?" So if you want to, you can go onto the site and read little notes about what's in the system. So you get a video introduction, and then you get a summary where we're talking about debtors management and how our system works, where you can click on to various information, key documents to do with debtors management. My suggestion is if you're going to talk to a client about debtors, that you use this section called ESS Biz Briefs, there it is down there, to get some background information and to find out where within ESS where all the systems are, where the processes are. And you go into the systems package, you can click onto those things direct. Then we got the next one, which in this case was, just go back to the beginning. Obviously, I can't click through. The next one was Personal Property Securities Register, if I remember correctly then. We can start at the top, I suppose. So accountants' papers, crowdsource funding, equity raising, introduction to business advisory, some notes about how government grants work, how our system works, the members alert, which we send out most months, how the Business Plus newsletter works. Because these items here are promotional tools that you can use. And on Business Plus, I'd just like to go to it now if I can. This is what I had in my PowerPoints, but I really wanted to do it like this. So this is, you can click on Business Plus. Now, every one of our subscribers has got access to Business Plus, irrespective of what level you're on. You can moving screens. You can download the content. And we did change the order. We previously had the most current was way down the bottom of the list. I got our web consultant to change that round a couple of weeks ago, so it might be a bit different to what you've seen. But this is the newsletter, which you rebadge, you take out the ESS BIZTOOLS badging, and you send this around. Now, I think you should be following up your clients, is my strong marketing message on business advisory services. If you're sending this out and you know that someone's been looking at research and development, why not pick up the phone 2 or 3 days later and ring them and say, you know, did you get that note about research and development? If they're in the reportable payments report area, those industries, why not contact them? They might want you to help doing something on that. If you had an early stage innovation company, and there's been quite a number of them around Australia now, they need to lodge details of their new shareholders by the end of July so that the tax office knows that there's going to be people lodging returns, the investors claiming the tax rebate that they get, 20% tax rebate based on their investment, subject to limitations, signing the trustee minutes, shareholders loans. But then we've got, what strategies are you continuing for this year, this new year? Why not ring some clients? How many of your clients have prepared new business plans for this year? It's not too late. They can do it in July. Someone told me the other day, July is now the down month for work. When I was running a practice, it used to be June. Okay, so July is the down month. Why not contact people and say, hey, do you want some help on doing your business plan? Do they need budgets and cash flow forecasts updated? Obviously, if they're doing business plans, they should. The special government guarantee loans, well, that's finished now, the 50% one, closed on the 30th. Have they got some interest in trying to fund their businesses? Are they going to undertake some of those scaling up exercises that Andrew just discussed? They could raise capital. 708 is still there. It's been there for 35 years, thank goodness. But now we've got early stage innovation company, if they're into technology and they're a young company under 3 years. Why not contact people who might have been doing that? But virtually every client you've got could come under the crowdsourced funding equity raising, as long as their turnover is under $25 million and they're in a company structure. And even if they're in a partnership or a sole trader structure today, you could very quickly take them into a company structure to satisfy crowdsourced funding equity raising. And they could raise $5 million in capital. What's the prerequisite? A good business, someone with a vision, a leadership team that's alive and excited about what they can do, and an understanding that if 20% or 30% of their business might be allocated to investors who have put their hard-earned money into the business. So they need to respect those investors. But there's some of the items. Andrew mentioned the charge out rate calculator. One of our
you need to put your accounting figures through that, work out your own production rates, compare it to what you're charging, which is
that's right. Use the same thing applies in the professional services firm package, which is on the bottom of the screen there now. But going back to tradies, one of our subscribers, we had a marketing survey, and those of you who were contacted, who participated, thank you very much. But one of you answered that well over 100 clients a year, he sits down and does this for them. And he's then sold them on the concept that they then must get monthly or quarterly, most of them monthly, financial accounts prepared so that he can have a business review meeting with them. So he has turned a tax job into another $5,000 to $6,000 for over 100 clients. Not a bad return by using the tradies charge out rate calculator as the basis of all that. Because you need to be monitoring what's happening with the productivity, with the expenses, with as the markup on external purchases being implemented the way it was planned in the exercise. I found that go wrong. Clients will say to me, oh yeah, we're marking it up 40%, someone told me the other day. I'm going to closely watch that one to make sure they are, because that wavers, doesn't it? It might only end up 10%, which means their charge out rates are wrong, because they didn't keep it as a special profit. They used it to subsidize their charge out rates. So there's a lot of variables in there that I think you can be talking to your clients about. Let's look at a couple of these others. Retail businesses. When I was in the meat industry, I had to sit down and try to work out what was going on in butcher shops and delicatessens and in our catering business, where you had definitely star items. Remember your charts years ago, Andrew, with the stars and the cash cows and the dogs?
Absolutely.
As stock items. They're all different markups. So they've all got, you don't want someone only selling cash cows. They won't make any money because the markups aren't high enough. So there's a package in the system for retail businesses, or as someone said to me the other day, retail stroke wholesale. So please use it with those clients. Start the conversation. Use the SME needs analysis to generate that degree of interest. So hopefully that will work for you and will help you to have those sorts of discussions. Just very quickly, we're dealing with subscribers. Don't forget, you've got all these products available. If you're a gold subscriber, you get all of these. If you're a silver subscriber, you get all of those except access to ESS Biz Grants. And if you're a business advisory services starter package, which we previously called bronze, we've changed that name, you get what's in that package. And that's where it is there, where you would click. And the way our system now works, if you're a starter package subscriber, that's what lights up when you go onto the system. That's the only one you can get access to. And you get access to that material. Don't forget those ESS Biz Briefs, because they're giving you a more detailed overview of where all the items are on these particular items. So I want to check and see if we've got any questions.
Good.
We don't seem to have any. If you've got a question, please send them through to us. And I'm just going to go back now and pick up the...
Just forward any questions to me that are addressed to me, Peter, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so
I've got another teleconference at 1, so I'm going to drop out just before 1. I'm just letting you know. So
okay, I'm just going through the material we had to look at. So in summary, Andrew, thank you very much for your contribution.
You're very welcome.
You are a guru in this industry.
Pete, stop it.
in summary of the business advisory services, I think the important thing is the initial training, the appointment of a leader. If we're talking to partners, and if you're not going to actually be directly involved in business advisory services, I think you need to appoint someone who is in charge of it. If you are the partner, what Andrew said was very right. In fact, I'm working with a few of our members at present, and that is they need to then responsibly delegate compliance work to other members of their team. But please keep in touch with them. I suggested to one person recently 3 30-minute discussions a day, start of the day, before or after lunch, and just before finish of businesses. You need to identify services that suit your clients. It's no use saying you're going to become the expert in research and development if you've got no one with any inclination at all to undertake research. But having said that, keep an eye on research. The government's got a feeling that there will be thousands of more people looking to claim the research and development rebate this year. There's normally 14 to 16,000 companies claim it. How many of them are your clients? Most of them are SMEs. But there could be a lot more because of COVID-19, people on working from home type situations. But you need to communicate to your clients that you're offering business advisory services. A lot of your clients think all you are is a tax expert. You need to be communicating. There needs to be ongoing team training. I think you might start with 3 or 4 products. That would be all you'd be handling with your clients. Debtors, charge out rates for tradies, perhaps professionals, and 1 or 2 others. But then you need to be looking at what else does your clientele require. So you need ongoing team training. But you need to be able to talk the talk with whoever your clients are. And I've heard Andrew in operations over the years, and he's a master at it. I, at one stage, was in the meat industry. I didn't know anything about anything to do with cattle. I had no idea how meatworks worked. You've got to get out onto the plant and understand how it works, because that will give you a far better idea of what your client's thinking. And keep up regular contact with them. You might have your initial discussion and some might give you various reasons why they can't do it today. Well, put them on a mailing list and a telephone call list. Keep in contact with them. I think it's also essential you update your website. I look at a lot of accountants' websites every year, and a lot of them are out of date. They've got things that were put up there, events they were going to run pre-COVID. Well, it's 18 months down the track now. We need to keep our websites up to date and feature articles to do with business advisory services. And if you can, get your client to agree that you can jointly promote an article, publish it, where they might give you a testimonial of what a great service you did. I think you need to be able to produce media releases on particular industries that you've become involved in. It doesn't take much involvement to become an expert for a particular industry, to be able to talk about their financial matters. So we're running this series of webinars each week. Our next one is next week on Tuesday. We have the first training package where we've got debtors management. The co-presenter I've got that day is Brad Smart. Now, Brad's a communications expert. He's the managing director of Selling the Message. And Brad's going to make an offer to you to do an initial communication activity with you. And hopefully then you might, he'd be hoping, of course, that you'd come back to him to get him to do some more work for you. But communicating and getting the message out is very important. So why not join us? It's a free webinar, Tuesday, 6th of July, 12 noon AEST. Obviously, we will be recording it and we'll be sending the webinar recording round, but we'd really like you to attend if you can. And on Friday the 9th, Andrew referred to this predictive accounting. We've entered into a joint venture with Plan Guru, a USA company that's active in 55 countries, in conjunction with their Australasian representative, Paul Barnaby, who also runs a company called Beyond Accounting Technologies, and he's the support manager. And we're including our material on budgets and cash flow forecasts. So we're going to be discussing the 3-way financial forecasts to ensure realistic financial projections. So that's on Friday the 9th at 12 noon AEST. If you need more information on anything to do with ESS BIZTOOLS, please contact me. Andrew, thank you very much for being with us today. We do have a question. Sorry, I'll just go to that before I close off. Adrian, we will send you the recording of today's, we'll be sending that to all of our subscribers, so you'll get it that way, okay? So, and thanks for being with us. Andrew's gone for his other appointment. So obviously I would publicly thank him for his contribution today. And thank you for your support of ESS BIZTOOLS or ESS BizGrants. Happy new financial year. Have a great day. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye. And I hope you're able to have a good weekend. And